Hello, everybody, and welcome back to RPG Talk, where we talk about RPGs and some visual novels. Welcome back, one and all, to RPG Talk, to another review, and the second part in our Mass Effect review series. But before we begin, I would just like to address the elephant in the room that I have been gone for 10 months. Sorry. And I got the webcam to work again. It's still the old webcam, so there's still the lighting and all that. But it works, better than nothing. So we are tackling today Mass Effect 2. I completed this game, I'd say, I don't know how long ago it is that I completed it. I'd like to say it was about a year ago now. It's been a while since I played the game. I also beat Mass Effect 3 shortly after that. And out of all of the three core Mass Effect games, the second one is my favorite. And in this video, I'm going to briefly explain to you why and just talk about the other things about the game. In this video, we will talk about the characters, the story, the gameplay, the music, the overall aesthetic of the game, what I thought worked for it that didn't work quite so well in the first and third game, in my opinion. Now, first off, in Mass Effect 1, one of the things, I think I talk about this in the review, is in my review for it as well. What I really did like the characters, I really did like the story overall. However, I didn't like the gameplay as much. The gameplay felt kind of difficult, yes, but just really I don't know. I feel like the gameplay was a lot better in Mass Effect 2. I don't know. I think it was also kind of easier, which might not be a good thing necessarily. You obviously don't want a very easy game that it gets kind of boring. But I mean, it wasn't too easy. First off, when you first start the game, you get ammo, which is something you really... I don't remember you getting that in Mass Effect 1. You pretty much just had your core ammo. When you ran out, you just had to switch to another gun. I don't remember there being actual clips of ammo you could get in the game, whereas in this game, you could do that. Another thing is, obviously, we should talk about the story. The story of Mass Effect 2 starts pretty much not too long after Mass Effect 1. There will be spoilers, obviously, because I'm going to talk a little bit about the beginning of the game. I'm not going to get too much into the later stuff, but I will talk about the beginning. Basically, the Normandy crashes. I think it's the Reavers that shoot you down. I can't remember. And then the Normandy is crashing, and I think Presley dies. Yeah, at the beginning, I think he gets shot while he's on the bridge. And then the ship splits in half, and basically everyone's presumably dead. That's not really the case, but it would appear that everyone either got to escape pods or they died. Except the only person who doesn't make it in time is Joker, who is obviously the pilot of the Normandy, and you get him, try to get him out, and in the process you just basically float out into outer space and basically are presumed dead. And then you go into the next cutscene, and it turns out that a group called Cerberus, I almost forgot the name, a group called Cerberus basically recovers your body and basically almost reprograms you in a way. They basically rebuild your body, which is really weird. And they put a lot of money, they invest a lot of money into making sure Shepard, which is obviously the main character, survives and basically works for them. And so basically, unlike the first game where you were obviously working for the Alliance, now you are working for Cerberus. And there are obviously a lot of new characters because of that. And basically the person behind all this is someone called the Elusive Man, who is an interesting character. And you don't really find a lot about the motives of the Elusive Man until the third game, which was honestly one of the better parts of the third game, in my opinion, was actually like finding what the moves of the elusive man are and all that. And there were some good parts of the third game, but again, I didn't like that one as much. And I'll get more into that in my Mass Effect 3 review. But there's a load of new characters. You got Miranda Lawson, you have Jacob Taylor, and both of those characters are pretty good. And there's my favorite character, Mordin Solus, and there's others. Can't think off the top of my head. Now, something interesting about how I played Mass Effect that I probably, maybe in hindsight, wasn't the best way to play Mass Effect was you can take your original character profile from Mass Effect 1 and port it into Mass Effect 2, and of course port that into Mass Effect 3. I didn't do that simply because I never actually completed Mass Effect 1. I never beat the final boss. I still haven't beaten the final boss. I could go back to Mass Effect 1 and try to beat that. I don't even know how old my game file is now, because I made a review for like 10 months ago, but A, I don't remember when I actually recorded that review, and B, I don't remember when I actually completed Mass Effect 1. I believe it was around 2016, 2017 maybe. It was a long time ago. So I'm guessing that review that I actually made 10 months ago, uploaded 10 months ago, was actually older than that. But regardless. And yeah, so there's a lot of different characters, and basically you find all these characters through Cerberus to basically help you on your mission to defeat the Collectors, who... there's a big plot point which I could go into. Might as well, it's a review. Basically, the whole plot point is the Collectors were once the Protheans, and the Protheans were the people who basically were thought extinct, who were thought to be made extinct by the Reapers, but in fact they were actually just transformed into these Collectors and now are like zombies for the Reapers. So that's a major plot point, and it was an interesting one, and I didn't really expect that. And throughout Mass Effect 2, and even into Mass Effect 3, you learn more about the Protheans and the Collectors and the Reapers and how everything is tied together. And out of all the three games, I think Mass Effect 2, like, I don't know, I've really felt like this, I really like the story of this game, even more so than Mass Effect 1. Mass Effect 1 worked kind of, in a way, kind of like the KOTOR games, which isn't surprising, because BioWare made KOTOR 1, you know. And Mass Effect was like the next project after KOTOR. So it kind of reminds me of KOTOR 1 to a great extent, because you're traveling to all these different planets and basically trying to defeat this enemy, you know, this malicious character, if you will. You know, in KOTOR 1 it was Malak, whereas in Mass Effect 1 it was Saren. That was his name. Yeah, where you beat Saren. And Saren was this, character who was being controlled by the Reapers and basically was a Spectre at one point. Well, still is a Spectre, technically, in Mass Effect 1. Obviously, Saren is the final boss in Mass Effect 1. Well, the first part of the final boss. I actually beat Saren. I just didn't beat the second final boss, which, of course, was... he was the Reaper that invaded the capital. Oh, jeez, I can't remember his name. Nope, can't remember his name. Anyways, the Reaper at the final part of Mass Effect 1. And can't remember his name. But it was the Reaper who was controlling Saren. And he was tough. He was a fucking tough fight, let me tell you. If you've beaten that fight, I want to know how you did it. Because to this day, I can't beat the bloody thing, and it really pisses me off still. And I need to do that before I die. I need to beat Mass Effect 1. It's kind of like one of those things I need to do, you know? And that's kind of interesting thing about Mass Effect 2. It's the only Mass Effect game that I've actually completed. I never beat Mass Effect 3 either. The final fight was pretty difficult too, honestly. I didn't even get to the final boss. I just got to the final battle, essentially. But yeah. Out of all the three games, I think Mass Effect 2 had the best combat. I think it was probably the easiest of all the games, but at the same time, I also felt it was had the most fluid gameplay. I liked the inclusion of the ammo clips, and I think Mass Effect 3 used ammo clips too, but I felt like Mass Effect 1 and 3 are very similar in terms of the way the story works and in the way the gameplay works. Whereas Mass Effect 2 is kind of the lone wolf. It kind of, gameplay-wise and story-wise, it's very independent and very different from the first and third games. I briefly talked about the characters. I talked about Mordin. He's a scientist who aids you. Miranda and Jacob, they work for Cerberus. Though throughout the game, their ties to Cerberus are somewhat questionable. Because the Elusive Man isn't exactly the most honest of individuals, and he's not very, for good reason, considering what he does, and what he does with Cerberus. Cerberus is less of an organization and more of a money, a means of financial success for the Elusive Man. He basically uses it as a financial foothold. Basically, the whole point behind Cerberus originally was to basically aid humanity. It's like a pro-human organization that's working to help humans. That's the whole idea behind Cerberus, and the Alliance doesn't like that, obviously, because there's obviously the alliances between humans and aliens and, everything in between. So just the whole idea of a pro-human organization basically defies the Alliance's goals, which I can kind of get behind. I can kind of get behind the original idea of Cerberus. Of course, you'd want to aid your own, your own race, your own species, more importantly. So the whole idea behind Cerberus, I could kind of get behind it. Honestly, I kind of felt like going along with the Elusive Man's plan for a while, but obviously, the way he goes about it is a little sketchy. Because you find out that, again, I reference Mass Effect 3 a lot because the whole Cerberus, the whole idea between Cerberus, the Elusive Man, and obviously Shepard, you're the main character, is basically one of the main plot points of Mass Effect 3. So it carries on into Mass Effect 3, and it was honestly one of the more enjoyable parts of that game for me. So yeah, I don't want to go too much into the other characters, mostly because I can't remember all of them. I remember Grunt. He was he was a Krogan who was kind of made to be the most pure Krogan ever. And basically the doctor who makes him Dr. O'Keir dies before you even get Grunt onto the Normandy. Also, I should point that out, the Normandy is actually a rebuilt version of it by Cerberus, so it's not the actual Normandy. It's like the Normandy 2, I guess. And obviously a lot of other characters return, like Joker, and even Ashley Williams, who was in the first game. She was a potential love interest. I really didn't have a romance in Mass Effect 1. In Mass Effect 2, I think it was Tali. I can't remember. I can't remember. I tried to get the Miranda romance, but it didn't really work out. So yeah, obviously there's lots of romances and stuff like that in the game. But you gotta be careful how you do it, though, because often there'll be other characters. If you talk to too many, certain characters, it depends if you're male. If you talk to too many female characters, you're gonna get into a conflict. If you're female and talk to many male characters, you'll obviously also get into a conflict. That sort of happens. And yeah, so that's pretty much all I'm going to do about characters. I don't want to get too into them because obviously I think you all should play the game to basically get a better understanding of the characters and all that. Same with the story. I'll go into a little more depth of it. Obviously I talked about how you wake up and meet Miranda and Jacob and the Elusive Man. And I talked about the collectors a little bit. Basically, the whole point of getting all these different characters is to basically aid your battle in going into the Omega-3 relay, which is basically the place where no one ever returns. Yeah, and for good reason. I actually lost quite a few characters just going into the Omega-3 relay. Like, it was crazy. So, I can't stress enough how important it is to build up your party and build up your connections with the characters, because it is extremely important in this game, because otherwise people will die. A lot of people will die. And it depends how well you build your relationships with characters, how well you how well you basically get all the species to unite with you. And I think it's also Mass Effect 3 as well, actually. I may be thinking about the whole splitting the species thing. That might be more of Mass Effect 3, but definitely Mass Effect 2 definitely focuses on building your bonds with characters a lot, and that's something that was missing a lot from Mass Effect 3 that I really missed. And there's just a serious lack of characters. For me, there was. Maybe that's just because I played the games independently. I didn't do like a joint like character through the entire series. That might be part of the reason why I didn't enjoy Mass Effect 3 as much as others may have. But for now, I'm just going to focus on Mass Effect 2. So yeah, the final battle is very well done. I really liked the final battle of the game. It was extremely good, and I really liked how like you could assign different characters to different jobs, and depending which character you chose, one would die, one would not. So it all depended on who survived and who didn't. I know Mordin survived at the end of Mass Effect 2 for me. I know Miranda survived. Jacob didn't. Who else didn't survive? The Asari, I forget her name. The Asari, I forget her name. Samara, was that her name? Yeah. She survived. And a few others survived, but a lot died. Jack died, and a lot of people died. I lost about half my party after the game. Because after you beat the whole game, basically just returns to Normandy, and then the game ends, essentially. Like, there's no, like, nothing after that. It's just, the end. You can go back and do some other quests that you didn't finish, but that's pretty much it. That's the end of the game. And I obviously can't speak for what happens at the end of Mass Effect 1 or 3, because I never beat them, so I can't compare the endings of those games to this one, because this is the only game I actually technically completed. So I got a more fulfilling experience with this game, so I may be a little more biased in that sense. I mean, if you really want to look at it that way, I guess. The music of this game is really good. Actually, I mean, the music. I mean, like, I feel like it was good. But at the same time, I can't remember anything memorable about the music. It's one of those things. It's kind of like Star Wars, for example. When you think of the music for Star Wars, you can think of memorable things, whereas this, I'm comparing two very different things here. I know, but it's not that different. I mean, they're both kind of sci-fi, but movies and games are, they're different. But I don't know. I think the music was good, but I can't remember any particular track that I liked. And in fact, I would say the first game probably had the best music. Let's talk about gameplay. I didn't talk about that too much. Again, I talked about it a little bit. I did talk about how I like this gameplay a lot more. I talked about the ammo clips. I like the gameplay. It's very fun. I felt like the first one was fairly difficult. I felt like the third one was not as difficult as one, but I felt like it was a little bit on the difficulty side, but more difficult than Mass Effect 2. But Mass Effect 2 did have some difficult sections, and there were a few times where I died, but not nearly as much as Mass Effect 1 or 3. I guess we could talk about replayability, and I think it's pretty high. I didn't actually I've yet to go back and actually replay Mass Effect 2, but I can definitely see me and myself going back to it and playing it again, because it was a lot of fun. And it just, I don't know, the characters in this game just gripped me a lot more, and I also like the whole story of this game a lot more than the other games. So I feel like if you had to play just one Mass Effect, I think this would be the one to play. And Mass Effect 1 maybe. Mass Effect 3 I'd say only if you're a diehard fan you would need to play, because otherwise, I mean, if you're just a casual player of this series, it's not that important. But then again, if you've played the first two games, you might as well play Mass Effect 3, at least try it, And I got all three games at the same time, so, it made sense for me, I guess. So yeah, that pretty much ends my overall critique of the game. I guess we're just going to give the final thoughts, and then we're going to give a rating, and then we're going to end the review. So, my final thoughts. I liked Mass Effect 2 a lot. I think it was the best out of the three games. And I also feel like it was more fluid in terms of the gameplay. I felt like the characters were more interesting in this game than the other two games. I also felt there were a greater range of characters, maybe too many. You could argue that there might have been too many characters in Mass Effect 2. And there are other games that I've played that have a lot of characters that I really enjoyed. KOTOR 2, for example, I really liked. It had like 10 playable characters. And my biggest gripe about that game was that there maybe were too many characters. Like, I never used like half of them. I only used like 5 or 6 main characters, and then the other 4 or 5 I just never used. So you could argue that it might have had too many characters, but I think it worked with the kind of scope that the game was going for. In comparison to Mass Effect 3, where I only had like 2 or 3 playable characters, you know, it's like, yeah, it felt so empty compared to Mass Effect 2. Again, you could argue that maybe I had that many playable characters just because I didn't, you know, play it the regular way that most people play it. So that might have made the way I played it a little bit different from the way most people play Mass Effect. I don't know, it's hard to say. Because I haven't gone back and played the game the other way. I don't know. I might be better at it now. I might actually beat Mass Effect 1 if I go back and play it now. I don't know. Maybe. So yeah, those are my final thoughts on the game. I thought it was a good game, you know. I really did enjoy it, and it was my favorite of the 3 Mass Effect games. And if I ever were to do a Let's Play on one of the Mass Effect games, I'd probably do Mass Effect 2. Because I really did enjoy that one. I feel like that would be a fun one to play, you know. So yeah, those are my final thoughts on Mass Effect 2. Now for the rating. What rating? I should probably rate each category. So, in terms of story, I would probably give this a solid 8 out of 10. It was a good story. I feel like it diverged at certain moments throughout the middle course of the game. Oh yeah, one other thing I should critique before I give like the final rating is the disc changing. There were like 2 discs in Mass Effect 2, which I don't mind. I don't mind there being multiple discs in a game. That really doesn't bother me too much. It's just that it wasn't like first disc is first half of the game, and then disc 2 is second half of the game. No, it like switched like 3 or 4 times throughout the entire course of the game, which really confused me. I don't get how that worked. Like, can someone explain to me why, like how that works? How like they do that? I don't understand. It didn't really make any sense to me. So that really confused me. But that's a really minor gripe. You know, as long as you have both discs, obviously. So yeah, story is going to give it 8 out of 10 for me. Characters, this was the strong point of the game for me. This definitely is a 9 out of 10. Definitely the highest point, and my biggest praise for Mass Effect 2 is its characters. I felt like a lot of them were relatable. Maybe not relatable, but maybe enjoyable. I enjoyed these characters. And yeah, there's not much. I went into fairly good detail about all the characters, and yeah, there wasn't really a character I disliked, honestly. So let's move on. So we've done story, we've done characters. Let's do music. Music was okay, not that great, but it was okay. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Nothing special, but it worked. Definitely wasn't the high point, but you know, it's there. So it was nice when it happened, I guess, but when I noticed it, rather. But I didn't feel like there was anything special about the soundtrack. Definitely not something I would buy, you know. KOTOR, on the other hand, that I would buy, because the KOTOR games had really good soundtracks. Now, let's see. So we've done story, we've done characters, we've done music. Let's talk about gameplay. Gameplay was good. I feel like this was the strongest of the Mass Effect games in terms of gameplay, so I'd give it an 8 out of 10. Pretty damn good. Nothing mind-blowing, but it was definitely fun, you know? And it didn't get too boring. There were certain times where it did get kind of boring, but I felt like I kept my interest enough and did new things enough. You know, leveling up the characters, getting new skills, stuff like that. That did keep my interest long enough for me to not get bored with the gameplay. And of course, it helped with side quests and stuff like that. That kept it interesting also. We could talk about voice acting. I really didn't talk much about voice acting, did I? Voice acting was pretty good. I'd probably give it an 8. It was decent voice acting, and honestly, pretty damn good overall. Replayability, I'd give it a 8 as well, actually. It was actually really solid gameplay. So, overall, when you combine the averages all together, I'm not going to do the math, obviously, but we'll just give it a random grade. I guess I would give it an 8 out of 10. 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10. Nah, I'd say 8. 8 out of 10. Definitely the best game in the Mass Effect series, in my opinion. And I felt like it was a really solid game. So, with that said, I hope you enjoyed my review from Mass Effect 2. Hopefully it was superior to the first review. I feel like that review was a little bit more all over the place, where I felt like this one was a little bit more organized. You can expect a Mass Effect 3 review sometime in the near future, and I will be a little bit more critical on that one. So if you enjoy a good rant and a review at the same time, look out for that. Until then, guys, this has been RPG Talk, and this has been the Mass Effect 2 review. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I'll see you with my Mass Effect 3 review, another series I have planned soon as well. So until then, keep playing RPGs and visual novels, and I will see you all in the next episode of RPG Talk. Take care.